So are we recording? What it said? Oh, maybe not. No, it says pause recording now, right? What does that say? Or resume? What does that say? Okay, cool.
Got it. You guys see that? Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Is there a way to mirror the screen instead of doing it this way? So I can see it. Is there a way to mirror the screen instead of extend the screen? I don't know how to use a Mac, sorry. I could just place that in.
We do.
Or are we not even sure? Yeah, there you go. Mirror,
Mirror built in right now.
yeah,
There we go.
hey, all right, perfect.
So
Yeah,
we can just go down, right?
yeah,
There you go.
perfect.
Okay, cool. All right, round 2 here. We're gonna try it again.
Yeah, look at me.
Yeah, I can.
I'll do it.
Okay.
Where'd it go? This one? Yeah.
All right. Can everybody stand for the pledge of allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag
One nation under God. With liberty and justice.
Great, the meeting is being recorded. Just a reminder, if you're making announcements, to please come up here so that the owl can see you. That good. Okay. Welcome guests and visiting Rotarians. Bill, you should take it away.
Good evening. To this evening, we got Georgia Brennan. Can you stand up, please? This is where I ask you a question. During the holidays, what is your favorite holiday and activity?
Let's say I would
Halloween counts too.
say, okay, I would say Christmas, because I get to see my parents, they live in Florida. And yeah, just being in the sun while it's freezing cold up here is really nice.
Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And then we have Fritz Leinfelder.
Yes. I know. There you are.
Hello.
Like Chris Leinfelder, running for sheriff of Ross County. I know that the Rotarians don't get involved in politics, which I'm not a politician, I'll tell you that right now, but thanks for having me, and I'll stick around later, answering questions. Anybody got some cards? Question?
Sure. Anyone?
Same one? Christian. I get a quick one.
Great. Thank you. And then we have Callie Portion.
Yeah, okay, that's me. I forgot. Whatever.
Favorite holidays and Halloween counts.
Yeah,
Also,
okay.
activity.
Yeah, mine is also Christmas, mostly because, my dog loves snow. So it's so cool to, see them like bury themselves and stuff.
Thank you. And then we have special guests, and you have not met these two ever before, Dean and Andrew Dickinson. So you can stand up and introduce yourself.
Hi, how you doing? My favorite holiday, you didn't bother to ask, but I'll tell you. It's Thanksgiving, because it's, a whole lot less hectic than Christmas. A whole lot less materialistic than Christmas. And, I've been thinking long and hard about, whether Thanksgiving is a noun or whether Thanksgiving is it really should be a real giving thing. So much to be thankful for, and we don't really take the time. And I have a poem, but I'm not gonna share it with you.
Thank you.
But it speaks to how much we take for granted, and those of us that are in Rotary, I think understand that there's probably 1 billion people on the face of the planet that don't have clean water. Another 1 billion that don't have access to anything approaching sanitary disposal of the waste and one thing and another. And then there's also the question of literacy. We take so much for granted. Think about that the next time you question for others.
Andrew Dickinson, I was gonna say Christmas, but. I think Thanksgiving too, it's got so much, at least I have so much to be thankful for, and family and health and friends, and so it's just a time to reflect on the year. Good night, I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you to the guests for being here. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them.
All right, and then we have 2 people joining virtually.
I think so. I don't want to screw it up. Meg's on, Meg Huckhaber, and Margarita is also on. So I'm Meg and Margarita and kids.
All right. October birthdays, we have quite a few. Caitlin, Carl, Johnny, Alyssa, Emma, Nathan all had birthdays earlier this month. So happy birthday. Hope you enjoyed your special day. And then October anniversaries, we have 2. Lisa Cobbs has been with Rotary After Hours for 9 years, and Kelly Croner has been with Rotary After Hours for 1 year. So congratulations to them. All right, and then just a quick reminder, Mari is here, our youth exchange student from Japan. For those of you that maybe haven't joined us or guests, she is always willing to go out and try some new food. So feel free to reach out to her. Otherwise, you can reach out to Lisa, Laura, myself, Phil, Larry. We can all help you get that set up. Just remember that you need to have a background check or be with another adult if you are transporting her or spending any time one-on-one with her. And then we also have the youth exchange cultural celebration. I don't think Laura's on, but they're doing a fundraiser. So the youth exchange students have the opportunity to go on a trip while they're here. I don't know all of them. I think there's like Hawaii, the East Coast, West Coast. There might be a couple others I'm forgetting. But anyways, they have opportunities to go on trips, and this is a fundraiser for our local youth exchange students. So to help with those costs, because they're kind of costly between airfare and the trip. I think they're a week or 2. I know they used to be about 2 weeks. I'm not sure if that's still the case, but $40 a person. It's at the lacrosse club Thursday, November 10th at 5:30. Each exchange student is doing a meal from their country, or like a taste of their country, and we'll have, I think, information and be there to talk about what life is that. So if you want to attend that, the sign up is on our website. If you go to our calendar on November 10th, the sign up's there. And I do think that there's a limited amount of registration. So if you want to go, I would recommend signing up soon. All right, service announcements. Do you want to do them, Caitlin?
Okay. First of all, thank you to everyone who signed up for mobile meals so last minute. We do still need somebody for tomorrow. If anyone is available, I would do it if I have a board meeting. And especially thank you to James who signed up day of to deliver meals on Monday. Whoa, sorry. Highlight cleanup is this Thursday. Phil will be leading it, but I will be there. We provide all of the materials that you need, so just come dress in layers in case it's cold. And then I don't know if they're going to announce iFeed. Sure. iFeed is on November 5th. It's a really fun event.
We now have 10 people signed up
Is there a
for our
limit?
team.
12, yeah,
Is it
12.
we have only 12?
Yeah. Each team has 10 to 12 people. And And I don't know, in the past, we've all dressed it for ugly sweater to promote that, because there is an award for best dress and best cheer. So I don't know if all the Packers on the team want to corral and figure out what to wear. If you want to.
So we need 2 more people on their team.
Yeah, what's that?
Do they need them on full toppers? Did you hear?
We'll talk about that.
Okay.
There's also yard signs out on the bench. If anybody would be willing to take those and put them up the week of iFeed. And then bring them back to the meeting because we use them year after year. So there's a dozen of them out there, or 10, if you'd be willing to take it, if you're in a good spot or people drive by. Would really appreciate that.
Just the week, I can put it out late.
Well, it says this, oh, no, you can put it out tomorrow. Actually, those say first Saturday in November. So yes, you'd be a great one on Mosey Boulevard.
I put them all the way down.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you have any questions on IC, ask Marissa. And then Erin, you want to talk about your?
So yeah, we're gonna do the Bikers Against Child Abuse soup cook-off on Saturday, November 12th, from noon to 4. My sister gave me an awesome baked potato soup recipe. That's all about the toppings, shredded cheese, bacon, and chives. So that's gonna help us win for RAH. Brad Burke is gonna help me do the cooking. I could use one other set of hands, maybe 2. Don't want too many cooks in the kitchen, but if anyone has an interest in helping to prepare that soup, let me know, because I could, like I said, use 1 or 2 more people. And then the meeting of that week, we're gonna really push everybody to hopefully come if they can that Saturday and enjoy testing all the soups that everybody have there, supporting Bikers Against Child Abuse. And yeah, Fritz will be able to come, he'll be the sheriff in town, so. It's at All Star Lanes on the south side of across the board.
Yeah, we'll send out more information or have more information at our next meeting. For it is their big fundraiser thing each year, so it's an important event for that organization. Ugly sweater 5K. Do you want to talk about it, James? Sorry, I'm kind of throwing you.
Yeah, no, we want to say. The Ugly Sweater 5K presented by Merge 360. Is of course the name of it. So we are fortunate to have a presenting sponsor this year. It's been a few years. Sponsor again. It's Saturday, December 3rd. I've been working hard on lots of stuff behind the scenes. I did send an email to the community members today with a really long agenda. Some of it's our updates and it's ours to do. Things are moving along, but still feels hectic. Yeah, that's a 5K run from Myrick Park to Riverside Park. We light up the trails with Christmas lights, 3 miles of lights. From Myrick Park to Riverside Park. It's at 4:15 p.m. I'm gonna be creating a volunteer sign up page. I'm actually gonna be creating 2 volunteer sign up pages. One for, I'm supposed to come here with 9. I'm creating 2 volunteer sign up pages, one for the community, one for our club members. So the one for our club members, Caitlin, I'm gonna be bothering you soon or somebody, to get that onto Club Runner. And then I'll have a community volunteer sign up page separately from that, that I can just hit every single coach in town, we hit every single UWL student club president. And third club president, and hopefully get a bunch of community volunteers also. So I'm gonna try to spread out our club members kind of all over the place, so we have club members everywhere that kind of know what to do. Community members who are ready to listen, followers, work hard. So it's a super festive event. It's our club's biggest fundraiser. So I look forward to your participation. Tell all your friends about it. Sign-ups already there to register for the race if you're interested in doing that. If you want to tell your friends all about it, walkers and runners, and put on your, I put the award in my car, but I bought trophies for the most hideously festive sweater. So there's going to be, of course, awards for the fastest runners in every age group, but also first, second, and third prizes for ugly sweaters. So make sure whether you're volunteering, participating, or whatever, that you're wearing your most hideously festive attire. Is that pretty good?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you. Okay, And just one thing to add, I think all of this is a little different than past years, all of our Rotary members that volunteer will get a T-shirt, but the general volunteers will not, but we do need to order T-shirts soon this year because of shipping delays and stuff. So when James does send that out, if you're gonna volunteer, please do it soon so you can guarantee your T-shirt size and we can get those ordered. They're awesome T-shirts, they're long sleeves. They're super comfy.
We can talk about this, what I might could do is buy a bunch of T-shirts that for the people registering for the race, that they can buy their T-shirts and maybe you get yours a week or two later. Like that could work too, so
Okay.
we can make sure you all.
Very good, thank you. Social announcement, I don't think there's anyone here to talk about this, but our annual RAH Friendsgiving will be Friday, November 11th, so you can come to that, and then Saturday, go to the soup kickoff. It's at Driftless Axe, there is a fee, but I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. But you get to throw axes, there's foods, we will get food from Famous Dave's, it's usually a lot of fun. So you can sign up on our website for that as well. Do you want
Sure.
to speak or?
Sorry, I was asked this afternoon to announce this. It kind of conflicts with the ugly sweater, actually. It's for the youth exchange overnight at the high school on December 3rd. We were asked to recruit chaperones to stay overnight with 18 students that are sleeping on the floor. So if you get excited about that, between 7 and 8, maybe until Sunday morning between 9 and 10 a.m. If you know other people that can do it as well, please let Lisa know.
I'm on it, the day of Sunday, so.
Yeah, so that weekend, all the youth exchange students from our district are gonna be in La Crosse, for their youth exchange weekend. They're gonna help volunteer or run the race, so it'll be good to have
You
them.
can totally do both of those things, every sweater volunteering with you. Move from one to the other.
Thank you. You wanna talk about
Yep.
this?
So our next public image committee meeting is gonna be after, the next meeting, which will be at the Main on November 8th. This is your last call to order RAH sweatshirts. There's a bunch that have ordered them, so I'm super excited to see all of us in full force in our blue, RAH necks and hoodies. So get those in before Sunday night, because they're getting turned in on Monday morning. $25, you can pay the secretaries or PayPal.
Thank you. Just a couple of Rotary events that are coming up. We already talked about iFeed. There is a STAR meeting, Thursday, November 10th at 7 a.m. at the Capella Performing Arts Building. They'll be talking about 5 avenues of service, the Rotary Foundation and Rotary Works, along with youth programs and such. So you can, sign up online. And Alyssa.
I don't know how the sign is working, but I was told that you can go to door B.
Okay.
And that should be open. If it's not open, there should be a phone number posted on the floor that you can call.
Got it. All right, thank you. And then they're starting up the Rotary Leadership Series again. I think it took a little hiatus over the last year or so. Downtown is incorporating it into their club meeting on Thursdays. So Thursday, November 17th from 12:05 to 12:35. They are going to have a presenter and they're talking about We Are Many United Against Hate. I have some more information if anyone wants to know. My understanding is you can join virtually or in person. But if you're interested in attending, let me know. And as I get more information, I will send it out to the club. And then just reminder that district TriCon is, I think it's in April. Yeah, April 27th to 29th here in La Crosse. So. Oh yeah, I put this on there. Do you want to talk about this, Erin, or do you want me to? Okay. You might remember that Erin brought a very cute little stuffed animal to one of our meetings. Rotary Lights is selling teddy bears to support Wafer, $20. You can buy them at all of these locations. Otherwise, Aaron might be able to bring them in if you talk to him and are nice. But it's a great fundraiser for the food pantry here in our community. So, anything to add to that?
It's just a wonderful gift idea, little kids, if you know people with kids or anything like that, or anyone who loves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was gonna say too, if you want to support it, but don't want the stuffed animal, if you want to donate it. We could take it, Mayo and Gunderson both have child life specialists, I believe, so they will give them to child patients. And there's Toys for Tots and some other programs around the holidays, so if you want to buy one but don't want to keep it, let me know and I will find a kid that would love to have it, so. And polio, yesterday was World Polio Day. We did have a fundraiser at the Lacrosse Distilling Company. Thanks to Sierra for helping get that organized. I know there's a couple of us there. But I just wanted to remind you that if you do make a donation to Polio Plus by March 30th, if we raise $130,000 within our district, Ben Bauer, our district governor, will dye his hair purple. So, and all the donations are matched by the Melinda and Bill Gates Foundation, 2 to 1. All right, any other announcements? All right, well, we will turn it over then to Mr. Dean Dickinson and Andrew, who's presenting or not, but.
Well, I just found something up and I'm really thankful for. I'm thankful for the Rotary Club of Lacrosse after all this. It's been 11 coming on 12 years since we formed this club. Because there was a felt need for a club that would be more receptive to younger people, and of course, you guys have kind of aged into that, haven't you? And I'm thankful that you guys do more Rotary in 20 minutes at the beginning of your meeting, and some clubs do in 3 months. I hope you appreciate that. It's absolutely awesome. Well, anyway, we're here tonight to talk a little bit about, among other things, the origins of the Dickinson family funeral homes. It's kind of an interesting story. It was started by my mom and dad back in 1955. Actually, Dad became a licensed funeral director prior to the war, and then when the war broke out, he went back to the farm because my grandfather was invalid. When the war ended, and Dad came to Lacrosse and worked for a couple of years, or for a while, not a couple of years, but for a while, the Nelson Funeral Home up on the north side. We went to Madison, he worked for the Fauci Funeral Home, and then came back to Lacrosse. And then in 1955, I had the opportunity to buy a branch of the north side branch of the Sutton Key Funeral Home, which was at that time one of the 2 most prominent funeral homes in Lacrosse. And at that time, my mother was 29 years old, my dad was 34. You can imagine they were pretty young people to get started. I would just simply say that my dad was driven by not wanting to fail at the funeral home business, because the fail would have meant that he would have to go back to the farm and manage 5 farms for his brother. And so there was very little family support for my mom and dad, but nonetheless, they came to Lacrosse, didn't have a pot or a window, but finally had a pot and a window in the apartment above the funeral home, and that's where I grew up, basically. And so, go to the next slide. It ended up being 3 generations of us, my dad, my brother Daryl, and then his 2 boys, Andrew and Brian. And I retired from funeral service here at the funeral home. 2001, 2002, I guess it was 2002. So I've been retired for 20 years. So this is the first opportunity that I've had to share my life experience in those 20 years. Somebody asked me, would you retire too? For those of you who know me, you know that I retired to Rotary. It was an accident. I got asked to be the president of my Rotary Club, and then subsequently to be a district governor, and it just went on from there. And Rotary has given me with so many opportunities to do things. That's Rotary has been a real blessing to me in my life. I wrote a lot of obituaries for guys that retired from the training company, and 2 years later they were dead and gone. And I determined that there was more to life than that. And so after 30 some years of being a funeral director, I decided to retire and turn the business over to my brother, who in turn turned it over to his two boys. We started out at that little place up on the north side. It was an old Victorian style home, and most funeral homes were old Victorian style. There wasn't any such thing as a funeral home that was built to be a funeral home. But my dad, God bless him, looked into the future and said, he wanted to build a funeral home, and so he did. He built this facility. That was in 1963. It was groundbreaking and was earth-shattering for the profession here in La Crosse. We opened this facility in the fall of 1963 and had 2 weekends of open houses, Saturday and Sunday. And something between 1,500 and 2,000 people actually took it upon themselves to come and visit and see what a funeral home really looked like. And it was pretty profound. Subsequently, I came out of the service in 1971. Noticed that my high school graduating class, the class of 63, had 30% of us had moved in north and down Alaska and home. And I told my dad, if we don't go with them, we're going to lose them. We need to serve those families going forward. And he allowed me to build a funeral home there at the corner of 4th and Main in Mount Alaska. Subsequently, we replaced that north side funeral home with the one up on Gillette Street. And then subsequently, my brother and I built the funeral home up in Pullman because, again, we saw tremendous movement north of so many families. In 1994, we acquired the Sutton McKee Hanson Funeral Home. That, of course, was the parent of my folks who bought that north side branch. So, well, some kids are given comic books to read when they're kids. My mom and dad handed me trade journal. I must have been all 3 or 4 years old at the time. I probably couldn't read, but I could look at the pictures. So if you wonder how I got started, it was a process of indoctrination, and they started very, very early. Next slide. And before I get into that, just let me make a couple of other observations about my journey into funeral service. I was outside of a neighborhood kid by the name of Steve Schulberg, my best friend, and back then you could play guns. We were running around the neighborhood shooting at each other with our play guns. That was probably politically incorrect to do such a thing today, but back then that was the way kids entertained themselves during the neighborhood. And I must have been all of about 10 years old, maybe 12. And my dad came down the street with the car and said, come on, we're going for a ride. I got in the car, he said, put on that sport coat. I put on the sport coat, and that was the first time I went on a death call with my dad. I was 10 or 11 or maybe 12 years old. That was really something. I can remember it to this very day because there was a couple in the room, and I wheeled right by them and I never even saw them. They're really good friends of ours. I knew them very well. Dad said, did you say hi to Bernie and Edith? I said, I didn't see him. All I was told was found was that person that had died. And subsequently, by the time I was 14, 15, I was working the door for visitation there at the Northside Funeral Home. And Dad would go down to Woodburg Cigar Store and get a month for himself and Mom, and then let me work the door. He left me at home one night, 17 or 18 years old, and said, if you get a death call, get a hold of Lenny. He lived 2 doors south, and he'll go with you. Well, the phone did ring, and I had a death call at Lutheran Hospital, and so I made my first. I forgot about Lenny. I just went out to Lutheran Hospital and made a removal all by myself, 17 or 18 years old. So I guess it was, I was predestined to be a funeral director. But what happened, I had no intentions. I was going to go to the Navy, or I was going to be a cook. I really didn't want to be, I didn't even think about being a funeral director. Just like anybody else. I lived above a funeral home. I was immersed in it, but I had some other thoughts about my life. But then a couple of things happened. In 1963 or thereabouts, a lady by the name of Jessica Mitford wrote a book with a diatribe against the American way of death. And up until that point in time, I think the industry hadn't given a whole lot of thought to what it was that we were about as funeral directors and offering that service. And then about that time, don't you suppose, 1963 in November, John Kennedy was assassinated down in Dallas. And so it all just kind of came together at that same time. And then, of course, in 68, 5 years later, there were a couple of other very prominent deaths, Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy. So the country really became aware of death and dying and the trauma that's associated in so many instances with the death of somebody, especially in an unexpected way. And so that was right around the time of the Vietnam War, and I had the opportunity to extend my educational deferment. I graduated from UWL, and I asked for an extension of the deferment, and I went to the University of Minnesota, and it was much to escape the draft for another year as anything. When I got up there, I realized that there was something there for me, that I could serve in a very unique way. And it was a very interesting way. And I found that I was probably pretty good at doing that. But you got to understand when a person gets involved in funeral service, it's really more of a calling than most people understand and realize. When I say that it's a 24/7, 365 day type of business, I'm being serious. For the first 5 years, my dad and mom, it was 24/7, 365. They were wedded to that business. And that was the time when it was very important in my life, because I was entering my teenage years. And in some respects, my dad's focus on being a funeral director really detracted from his being able to be a dad. I'm not being overly critical of my dad. That's what it was. He didn't want to fail. He wanted to succeed. He wanted to provide for his family. But he didn't have any hired help until after 5 or 6 years. And then when I got involved in the business, my brother and I, we alternated weekends and holidays and nights. So I was on call 7 nights out of 14, worked every other weekend, worked the other major holiday for 31 years. And after 31 years of that, I said enough of this. I needed to focus on something else in my life, and that's why I moved on from funeral service. This is the first time I've had a chance to share myself and the whole subject in those last 20 years, but we did it on a very regular basis when I was here. Bob Dickinson taught a course on death and dying out of the university, and he was over here for both semesters. Jim Gould, who had the physical therapy program at UWL, he tied the training of physical therapists to the psychosomatic issues that might arise from a grief experience. And a fellow named Jim Sauer from over Central High School regularly came over. We would probably do 30 such meetings like this a year, where people would come in and we talk about funeral service and what it was all about. Well, at any rate, the industry to deal with Jessica Mitford and her diatribe and the result in CBS special, 3 nights of that with a guy by the name of Robert Trout, who looked more like a funeral director and undertaker than I ever wanted to look like. I mean, his little pencil mustache and greased back hair. But it was a terrible time, but nonetheless, people came forward. And one of the guys was the guy named Robert Fulton of the University of Minnesota. And when I went up to Minnesota, I had the privilege of actually studying with Bob Fulton, great guy. And there was a guy by the name of John Brantner, Dr. John Brantner, from over in the medical school, and Rabbi Earl Grohlman, and Father Kieran Nolan from over at St. John. Those were the people, the nucleus of my educational training there at the University of Minnesota. And it all was born out of the industry's need to come to grips with what it was that we were doing and why we were doing it. So anyway, Bob Fulton wrote this book, and what he came up with was a hypothesis that said that funeral rites serve 3 specific purposes. One is it allows us to deal with proper disposition of the human body. There's only 4 ways of disposing of the human body that I know of. One is you can bury it. You can place the body in a tomb, in a mausoleum. You can cremate it, or you can donate it to science. But you stop and think about it. We don't allow our dead to just congregate or aggregate at some place. There's an orderly system for the proper disposition of that person. And then secondly, second purpose of the funeral rite goes really to the question of ritualization and how we reorientate ourselves as part of that grieving group to the life now that's been imposed upon us, especially if it's somebody that's very close to us. a mom, a dad, a brother, sister, maybe one of our children, life changes. And with that event, there comes a whole lot of anxiety. And there's a woman by the name of Margaret Mead who talked about why we ritualize experiences. And she said, ritualize is a response to anxiety. We are wired to deal on a daily basis with the life experiences on a daily basis. But when that cataclysmic event happens, when somebody dies, whether it's immediate within our family or within our nation, such as with John Kennedy, or Martin Luther King or Bobby Kennedy, we need to form a structure. We need a structure to work through that because we're not geared to that. 9/11, when that happened, the whole country had to respond in a very anxious way to that, and we ritualized that experience in a lot of ways. We had become not so much religious as secular, but when all of a sudden that happened, and I think Pastor can tell you, a lot of people started going back to church. And we also started reorientating ourselves because when I went back to California after 9/11, I found that people were much more willing to engage in a very social way outside of, there's a boardwalk in front of our place, and normally we just pass by each other, but no, we were reaching out and we were trying to reconnect. It provides a sense of control over the situation that we find ourselves in. We become a control factor. Some of us who might have been involved in that in a fairly recent way, understand exactly what I'm talking about. You sort of lose all sense of control. Now what? And that's where the funeral director comes in. And I said almost facetiously, but it's realistic. The funeral director is essentially a party planner. We organize the events of over a course of 3 to 5, 6 days that allow people to transition through that life experience. And you can provide, it's been spoken that the funeral provides closure. It doesn't really provide closure. Closure doesn't happen in a 3 to 5 day time frame. It might take as much as 6 months or a year before that ultimate closure, and you're able to close the book and then move on with your life. But anyway, those were the things that Bob Bolton came up with. Next slide. There was another fellow named Jeffrey Gore who wrote a book back in 1965, and he explored the subject of death, grief, and mourning. And here's some of the observations that he made. 44% of parents say nothing to their children about the death in the family or about the impending death in the family. And that in and of itself will create an emotional vacuum that's created by the absence of a meaningful conversation. First, we probably don't do a real good job about talking about a lot of things that are important in life. We get our sex education in 5th grade. My mom and dad never talked to me about the birds and the bees or anything close to it. So, yeah, but I have noticed, for instance, we served a lot of families in the rural area, and out in the rural area, it wasn't uncommon to see children coming to funerals a lot more often than the death was at a funeral here in the city of La Crosse. And the kids out on the farm probably experienced death in a multitude of ways. It was maybe their pet calf or a cow. They obviously saw, when I was a kid, I mean, I saw my grandmother harvesting geese at Thanksgiving and Christmas time. That meant killing a goose. We saw life and death in very certain ways. And so there's really no conversation. That conversational vacuum creates a level of anxiety in the lives of people. And I'm not sure if we still, even in society today, talk and are fully involved in the conversation about life and death issues. But every once in a while, it's imposed upon us. And then there's a cycle of deprivation. It's accumulative. It runs from one generation to the next. You know, those of us who are in funeral service understand that we're probably among the least popular people. You know, that funeral director, he takes advantage of me at my brief moment. And but I've also heard a comparison to our people that are involved in politics and congressmen. Nobody likes Congress in general, but their own congressman is probably a pretty decent guy. Most people don't think real highly of funeral people in funeral service, but their own funeral director is a pretty decent guy. You know, I realized, early on that, when a family picked up the telephone and called me, they were calling it one of the worst moments in their life. And who was I, to not respond, as quickly and in as meaningful a way as I possibly could. I remember, a cute little story. I'm in the Vogue Bar. I did a lot of things in the Vogue Bar back in the. I met my wife in the Vogue Bar. But this particular occasion, two guys that I knew were iron workers, PA and Richie. And they came in and they started giving me a hard time about the great life I had and all the money I was making as a funeral director. And I turned to him and I said, well, not only that, but I'm building a building, planning on building a building, and I'm gonna need to have some rebar put in the end so we can pour the footing and so we can pour the concrete. I said, the only problem is we're not gonna do it until January 15th, and it's probably gonna be 20 below zero. And we'll have to do it at 2 o'clock in the morning. He laughed and said, well, don't bother calling us. And I said, well, when you call me on January 15th and it's 20 below zero, my answer will be, I'll be there within the hour. And when Richie's dad died and TA's dad died, they both called me. I'm not a martyr. I'm simply saying, those of us in funeral service do it and understand that it's the worst moment in the life of those families when they have to pick up the phone and call. Another example of how this all works, my wife is from Europa, and I left the young guy that worked with me. I was my weekend to work that Christmas, but I wanted to go down to Europa Christmas Eve. And I said, something happened, give me a ring, this house call, I'll be back, and we can do a house call, but with the hospital call, just make sure you will only call me at 7 in the morning and I'll come back and make arrangements. He called 7 in the morning and said, we have 2 deaths last night, we come back, and I said, sure. So he said, you're booked at 9 and 11. I came back, and while I was home, we had 2 more deaths. I got back to Europa and celebrated Christmas at 9 o'clock that night. But those were the worst moments in those people's lives. That wasn't a bad moment in my life. And that happened all very, very often. And that's just the nature of the work that we're involved in. But anyway, we'll go to the next slide. The time of most acute, I'm going to take exception to this point. The time of most acute emotional support is the infancy and time of death. One of the things we discovered is that even when people are dying, there's a lack of conversation, a lack of empathy, an unwillingness to talk with people. And out of that notion was born the hospice program. And out of that program was born a program over at Dickinson Lutheran called Resolve Through Sharing, where I was called by Ronald Limbo to come over and participate for 2, 3, 4 years, a couple times a year, and talk to staff about how we deal with a mom and dad that has just lost a baby, whether it was stillborn, premature, or died neonatal. And out of that program came a wonderful program called Resolve Through Sharing. And it was a great program. And I took that to a professional organization called National Selected Morticians, and they adopted it as their cornerstone in dealing with families that had lost a child. So what came out of that is how important it is to talk to people that are terminal. Not to isolate them, but to be able to share the conversation and to share their anxiety and where they are in life's moment. And that's the hospice program. Well, anyway, what's happened in society over the years? These are some of the things that have impacted, although all of us as a society. We moved from being a religious to a secular society. I think we all understand that. Mainline religious affiliation is down. I mean, we know that. We moved from a stable, very stable society to a more normal group, and that actually dates back to the invention of the automobile. When people could get in the car and they could move, they could leave. Historically, you were born in a community, you lived in a community, you died in a community. The state of California has been populated by people, and the state of Florida populated by people that moved out of Wisconsin, and that's a function of our greater mobility. I keep on going. we've moved from a integrated to an individualized group. I don't care if we've got a cell phone with us and one thing another, that hasn't brought us into a greater relationship with more and more people. That's actually, I think, in many respects separated us, because everything is so one-dimensional. It's not in the best interest of those of us, especially at the time when there's a death. How do you deal with that over the telephone, over a cell phone? Something else is required, and that is what I would say, some sort of a ritualized type of reaction to that situation. We moved from a neighborhood to suburban lifestyle. I had a service with a very prominent family here in town. One of the brothers came back from California, he was a Lutheran minister, as a matter of fact, and he lamented the fact that out in California, when you bought a lot to build a house, the first thing you built was not the house, was the fence to enclose your yard. And he said, I live in a neighborhood and people have come and gone and I never got to know them. And that's, you know, and frankly, I live out on Bowler Road and there are people that have come and gone in my neighborhood and I don't know. That's a sort of a suburban area of the city of Lacrosse, if you want to call it that. That's not in the best interest of us of people. Are there more societal change? Or am I at the end of my conversation? Another slide. Well, there's some rhetorical questions. We really don't have a lot of time. If we want to follow up after the meeting, we can talk about it. Are you apprehensive about being a funeral home? Some people might be. You know, maybe they had an experience and maybe this brings back some thoughts. Next question. Are you afraid of dying or are you afraid of being dead? Two different questions entirely. Dying is the act and dead is the end result. I have a perspective. It's a little different than yours. You're 30. Once upon a time I was 30. Then I was 40. And then one day I woke up and I was 77 years old. But believe me, I think about it in a wholly different way today than I did when I was 30 and 35 years old. But I will say this to you, if you come to understand that there is life is finite. I was over the cemetery the other day, removing a vase from my mom and dad's grave, and I stopped by to see the grave of a kid that was in my high school class. Great guy, Alan Dizzy Delville. Ran a mile in front of me, always in front of me, because he was 220 yards in front of me from the start. Ran about a 428 mile, I ran a 452 mile. He was in a car accident over Water County. He was 17 years old and he was killed, and he was going to be a doctor when he was killed. And I thought to myself many times, because I've lost 74 members of my class and some of them died 40, 45, 50 years ago. How much life did they miss out on? And why was I blessed to have all those years that they didn't have? And with that goes a sense of responsibility to live your life, live my life, with as much meaning and as possible. Because one day it'll come to an end. Next question. Have you experienced the death of a friend or family member recently? My daughter, I know, had this a very personal experience. Maybe some of you have to. It's a tough time. Next point. Ever been to a body present funeral? Well, there's a reason for body presence. You know that they're still trying to recover grave bodies that people that were killed in World War II, Korean War, Vietnam War. I had a woman. She was this. What was she? The sister or the mother-in-law of a friend of ours, and her son went down on a plane during World War II on a training mission out in California. And it wasn't until an earthquake caused a fissure in the lake, and the lake drained, and they found the plane and they found the remains of the son. She shared with me that for the first time in 50 years, over 50 years, she was able to know where he was, and they brought him home and they buried him. How important that is for that thing called closure. It's not out of sight, out of mind. That doesn't work. We worked in the our funeral home, very, and I could tell you one story after another about how important it was for families to come in and see the person that died. Two quick ones. One, a guy died in bed with smoking a cigarette and literally burned. It was horrible. And I created a situation right in this chapel, the pastor was up here, I put up a theater roping to try to keep families away, because I thought distance would help with the look. And family went in front of that, went up there, went back into the, at that time, the family room, and got the rest of the family, said, come, you gotta see Uncle Joe. Another family came in, beautiful mother, physically, and a beautiful lady. And went downstairs and picked out the really beautiful casket that had a blue velvet interior in it, and the daughter said, oh my God, there's a dress at home I would like to have my mom wear. So she went home, got the dress, made it, had a setting for them. The family came in and said, oh my God, his feet look nice. And then they invited some other friends in, and then they decided, okay, we're gonna go ahead and close the casket. And there was a disenfranchised. Some people found out that others had been given the blessing of being able to see the person who died, and others weren't. So I'm not saying that in every situation, you have to see the person who died, but I think Anna will tell you, the opportunity to see a person before the cremation has been offered to our families, and it's important, and a lot of families will take advantage of that offering, to come in and actually spend some time. Now, understanding that, there's a lot of things that go on. Modern medicine has prolonged life, even after the notification that you're terminal. And so, the whole grief process is skewed a little bit because of that longevity, in the act of dying. It's a whole different than if you're riding a tractor and you tip the tractor over on yourself and you're killed. That's like right now. Or if you happen to be Queen Elizabeth and, you know, you're 90-some years old, and then your whole nation goes into war. What happened? What's happening when the whole country, as a matter of fact, the whole world, celebrated the passing of Queen Elizabeth? In our business, we said we bury the dead, but we serve the living. And what was happening was a reorientation of the English society, the fabric of Great Britain, the people of Great Britain. And that funeral was for them. They disposed of Queen Elizabeth, but it was a reunification of those people that call themselves Brits. Next one, and probably the last one, we consider self religious, spiritual. The approach to how we handle the anxiety of death is very determined, affected by whether we're religious or spiritual. In fairness, I will probably move from being a religious person to being a spiritual person. And I think a lot of people in society have. How we would deal with a death in our family is going to be impacted by whether we're religious or spiritual. Just some things to think about. And is there another question or not? Probably not. Well, anyway, a guy by the name of William Gladstone said that show me the manner in which a nation buries its dead, and I will measure with mathematical exactness the tender sympathy for the people, the respect for the laws of the land, and their loyalty to high ideals. And then at the very end. Thank you very much. That's my program for tonight. Marissa, you didn't tell me to sit on the discussion. I have 5 minutes over, but you said 30 minutes, and I run a little bit long. Are there any questions quickly? Yeah.
First of all, thank you, and you know, your wisdom just came through so greatly. I think one of the things that is always a struggle is what to say to the people who are actively grieving, and you know, your insight into how you handle that would be nice to teach us a little bit about what are the things that you find are helpful.
Well, you know, it's a great question, and I'm not sure that I have a ready answer. It depends on circumstances, a lot of things, a lot of variables. Recently, we had a service visitation for a fellow by the name of Seafold from the north side. Been very involved in Logan High School, and they did the visitation over at the school auditorium. I haven't been to the guest hall, but 1,500 people went through on that thing. What do you say to the kids and his wife? Sometimes it isn't necessary to say anything. It's just to be there, maybe wrap your arm around them, and then of course it would say, "You have my sympathy." Your dad was a great guy. Just to acknowledge, to let that acknowledgement. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Sometimes it's just the presence of being there and being supportive of those people. That's the reason for those things that we call visitation. That time, you know, the gathering, we come together, and today it's a lot of photo boards and one thing another, reminiscing about a life well lived. and how important that person was in our life. Well, whatever, my mom and dad have been, my mom died first, and then my dad died about 9-10 months later. In 1 year, I literally became an orphan, I don't know that I fully understood or appreciated how important my mom and dad were, until they were gone. And that's, I think, true of most of us. How important are those people in our life? So maybe it isn't so important that we have exactly the right words to say at the time of death, but maybe it's important that we acknowledge how important those people are in our life while they're still alive, you know, to say thank you to them once in a while.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah,
I've been an investigator for the better part of 21 years, and just to tell you that different death scenes that I've been at, and that when the funeral directors, funeral homes show up, the family has which is a feeling of relief and that they're being taken care of. So, you know, when the old joke or the standard, you know, it's, oh, you're a funeral home director, you're making money on that, but
yeah.
what I've seen through my career when that happens, when the different funeral homes show up, it's a real blessing for that family, because they don't have the answers, you have the answers, you can provide all the assistance, and it helps us in one point.
Well, we start to provide the structure, that's gonna all in our works to do. I remember one line that I had, especially when we dealt with a family that had just lost a child, a baby. First of all, at least I don't know how it is today, but back then, we simply didn't charge for those services. We just, on one occasion, though, I'm out on the golf course, and I informed the family that there would be no charge, and I got called off the golf course and said that's not sufficient, so then we need to do something. And ultimately, I understood that family needed to do something by way of gifting that child, whether that was the purchase of a casket or whatever it was. And the little caskets were little or nothing. So it harks back to a point in time when Garvey here said to me, Dean, we're forming this club and it's time for you to sit down and be quiet. I didn't think I was gonna get that line in, by God, I can. Presented the opportunity, but the fact of the matter is, sometimes we do need to just sit back and be quiet and find out what people are thinking and saying. But we as funeral directors, that's what we do. We structure that time, and I said to these families when I was dealing with a child, I can't presume to tell you that I understand where you're at. I can't presume to tell you that I'm feeling what you're feeling. All I can say to you is that I'm going to help you in every way I possibly can over the course of the next few days to move through this time, and then beyond that, if that presents itself. So thank you very much for that comment, and I'll vote for you. Because you got more yard time than anybody else. Well, I'm available if anybody else has any other questions.
Yes, thank you very much.
Is there anything else? What was that? Oh, yeah. There's not much, but yeah.
Thank you for having us and speaking about your journey and all that you've done for the community. So we appreciate it. If anyone has any other questions, I'm sure Jean would love to answer them after, but I want to make sure that we get you guys out of here at a good time. So our next meeting will be back at the main November 8th, be the match, which is a blood blood transplant, no, bone marrow transplant, thank you. Organization, they will be here to present, so, thank you. Totally spaced out there. November 8th. That is election day, so hopefully you guys can still make it to the meeting, vote, and then join us.
One more thing about, we have a member, Kelly Boyette, who's running, for a write-in, if you want to support her, for city clerk, I think. Clerk. But you have to write it in,
TTE.
yeah, there you go.
All right, we can do the 5-way test quick. Dan, of all the things we think, say, or do, is it true?
Will it be better connections? Will it be beneficial?
Then I have one more slide, just upcoming committee meetings if you want to join. I know sometimes we have meetings after this one. All of those I think are moved, either canceled for this month, or the committee chairs will email you about other plans. So, but thank you. I think that's it. I don't know if there's anyone online. I think we have a question.
I don't know. Let's see. I don't know how to work this thing. Like, it's. So, okay, wait, what time tomorrow? Oh, audio is very choppy. What time tomorrow? I don't know what that is. Oh, what time is, what is? What is Wednesday? What's tomorrow? Margarita, can you hear us?
Yeah, I was talking about the iFeed. What time tomorrow do you guys need help?
So iFeed's not until November 5th.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, it's a Saturday and our packing time is, we have to be there at 8 and we start packing at 8:30.
Okay. All right. Thank you
And
for the
sum up is
clarification.
online. Okay, sounds good. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.